Hello and welcome to episode number 76 of the Board Game Barrage podcast. Podcast about board games, the latest hotness, and how to have fun with your friends, even when you're losing. Sometimes I wonder if we're even friends anymore, or if we're just tanks.
Barely. Yeah.
I'm just in it for the podcast.
Right.
Otherwise, I never see you.
Bucks. Yeah, exactly. It's all business.
A lot of things are starting to click into place in regards to having never seen your home before. You homeless hoarder.
I feel like the rivalry is a big part of it still, right? Because there was like a football match a couple of days ago, wasn't there, Mark?
There was.
I think it was like the African Cup of Nations.
That's right.
And I think your team, Egypt,
Was the hosts and favorites to win the tournament.
and they played against my team, South Africa.
Upstarts.
I prepared a response, like a little,
God.
just
All right.
in response to the results.
No, what are you doing? Don't do that. Oh, God.
Wait, what's he doing?
Viva Bafanavi, Basho Sholoza, Kules und Tabas, Dimbelas, Puma, South Africa.
This is the best thing that's ever happened to the Board Game Barrage podcast. Holy cow.
What did he say? Google Translate, do it again.
What is that? What is it?
It is a South African chant song.
Yeah.
It was a mining song that became like a football chant, a
That
sports
is
chant.
awesome. What does it say? What is it translate?
Oh, I actually don't think I know, to be perfectly honest.
Wait, out of curiosity, how come you don't know what it is?
It's just everyone knows the song. It's just a song that.
But why can't you translate it?
I
Am
don't
missing
speak the
something?
language.
Oh, what language is that?
That's Xhosa.
Oh, okay.
Or it
It's
might
like
be
a native.
Zulu. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. That's cool. I like that. So people sing that song even though they don't know what
Totally. It's a very widely known song. Like everyone in the country knows that song.
Okay.
Virtually, but I
Yeah.
don't think most people would know what it means.
in association with the sports teams.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's where most people hear it. It's become like a song more of just like national pride
Yeah.
more than anything else.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I don't like the circumstances in which it was presented. South Africa knocked Egypt out of the African Cup of Nations, but that was awesome. I love that kind of stuff.
Mark, the green tank, and Neelan, the orange tank, are not aware of what podcast they're on, but this is Kellen speaking, the host of this board game podcast.
But before we get into board games, we're going to keep this into soccer talk because earlier today, the U.S. women won the
Stop it.
Women's World Cup. So, USA. Colin, you can get into it.
Oh, America.
Yeah.
USA.
Sholoza.
All right.
All right. Today is a very special episode. One of my favorites to record, one of my favorite things to do. That is to look at the Gen Con preview, to figure out the board games that we are excited about checking out, and to tell you all about them. Mark, can you say the miracle words for us in your voice?
Oh, Gen Con 2019 preview.
Perfect. But before we do that, as always, we will be talking about the games that we have played this week. Neelan, stop singing. Tell us about Cryptid.
Happily. Cryptid is a game that makes me want to sing. I like this a lot. What Cryptid is a game by Osprey Games, got art by Kwanchai Moria. It is a game of deduction, competitive deduction, where you have a sort of a map. This map is custom made from a series of cards. Each card sort of is being very carefully calculated to give a unique map and one specific hex unknown to the players where some sort of cryptid is being located. So it could be Bigfoot or Chupacabra. It's all left to your imagination. Every player then also is given a clue as to 1/4 of the information they need to find that specific hex. So for example, depending on how the board's laid out, there are a bunch of different terrain types. There are little shacks and standing stones of different colors. My clue might say the cryptid is definitely not on forest or a swamp. So I would look at the board, and that obviously eliminates, a good, decent proportion of the board. Mark's clue might be the cryptid is within 3 of a shack. So Mark has a couple of radiuses around the board where the thing might be. Kellen's might say, it's within this distance of bear territory. So using the combination of those clues, we get down to a single hex. And one of the things that's quite clever about this game is I assume that they've procedurally determined these so that they're unique for every single possible configuration. So there's only one single possible hex that fits these clues. And the game is the process of putting your piece out onto the board and saying, Kellen, according to your clue, could the monster be here? And then Kellen will either say yes or no. You put a little piece on the board to signify that.
I don't actually have to say yes or no because I can just... You don't even have to talk.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's actually one of the interesting things is that, the player just responds by putting their piece out on the board, which is a cube, which says no, it could not be here according to my clue, or a disc which says, yeah, this absolutely could be the spot. So it's a series of using the pieces that are on the board to try to deduce what people's clues are, and then presumably once you have all of the information, you should be able to hone in on the exact spot. You'll take your turn to say, I'm going to guess that it's here, and if everyone confirms that it could be there, then you've won the game. So very simple rule set, but leads to a really, really fun experience, one that's kind of unique and one that I really enjoyed. We actually sort of played this a couple of times back to back in quick succession. A really solid game from my initial take. Kelly, you played this as well, right?
I have, and I don't really like deduction games, but I did enjoy the one play I've had. I think we are overselling art by Kwanchai Morier because we're talking about the front cover, which is amazing, and then the
tiles, yeah.
Oh, the tile.
I think the map is, right?
I doubt. The map is ugly as hell, man.
I think
there's no way he made that map. Pull it out. I very much doubt he made it. But I could be wrong.
I don't think it's not as ugly as you're perhaps remembering.
No. It's not as ugly as you think it is.
It's got like cute little pictures and things.
That looks like the same type of art. I don't know.
Yeah, it definitely has the same style to me.
I'm trying to look for a picture of the whole board together. I just feel like the cover art is spectacular, and then you open it and you're like, oh.
No, that's fair.
Anyway, the other thing that I thought was kind of odd is that you get sort of this booklet that has like 100 different possible rules that could be on your card, and it's just like, really?
Yeah, and you only need to like look at one of them and remember that for the entirety of the game, and then that's all you need that booklet for.
All 100 rules?
What?
Well, but it's
no, you just need to look at your specific clue.
Because you're trying to figure out what everyone else is.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
You're trying to figure out what everyone else's rule is.
To clarify, there's a separate reference, which is all the, I don't think it's that many, but it's the list of possible clues that could be available to people. And so it will say like, okay, the possible clues are within this distance of terrain, within this distance of bear or cougar territory, not on this terrain type. You know what I mean? So it just sort of breaks down all the possibilities in a way that is a little bit like, oh, so there are no clues that are X amount of distance from this type of thing, which is a little bit weird. Right. So you sort of have to like step through each of those things to like consider what people's clues could possibly be. I didn't think it was that bad in practice. There was an element of sort of going down that list and being like, well, I know it's not this. I know it's not this. I know it's not this. But yeah, I think one of the other things that I'm reminded of whenever I play a deduction game is that the first couple of plays are a lot more exciting as you're sort of figuring out the systems for it. Once you sort of know what you're trying to do, it becomes much more about just executing on a very specific procedure, which makes it hard to mix experienced players with new players into this type of game. I think if someone had played this a couple of times before and then you threw anyone new into the mix, that person would have next to no real chance versus them. So your hope is that everyone is on equal level. And by the same sort of rule, once you've played it a few times, I suspect it starts to get stale. I don't know that for sure.
There is this element, though, that I seem to remember enjoying the most about when you have to reveal information about your rule, trying to do so in a way that is the least revelatory to the other players, and kind of they're going, oh, he's going to put it on another water space, and that doesn't reveal as much information. And that maybe becomes more of the game, quote unquote.
And I think that's absolutely true, because I think the smartest plays that we had when we were playing SA were exactly that. We were looking at how people were placing their forced information and being like, okay, he's obviously not trying to reveal information about this. And in the case of the player that won the second game, they were quite deliberately trying to trick us into thinking that they were not revealing information about one category where it was actually their clue was completely different.
That's cool.
Which is smart that you have that option available to you. It does force you to be honest at all times, but you can use tactics like that to misdirect, which I think is clever.
I'm assuming neither of you guys have played Tobago?
It's very similar to... I have played Tobago.
Oh, you have played Tobago.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's similar to Tobago, and in some ways, I liked it more. It's been a long time since I played Tobago. It's purer. It's just the place deduction component of it. And... yeah, it's hard for me to remember exactly how the deduction component in Tobago works to compare it, but I remember thinking I enjoyed this more, at least.
Okay, yeah. Tobago has a very similar aspect where you're narrowing sort of where the treasure in the case of Tobago can be, but Tobago also has it's much more gamery. It has a push your luck aspect to it, which I like. But yeah, it sounds like a game I'd be interested in.
The other thing that I thought was really cool about this is... there's only so many cards in the box, but apparently there is also a website that just procedurally generates new configurations for you. So it's just a smart system. They've obviously worked out their rule set enough that they can just keep generating new maps for it, which is always something I find quite clever.
It's also short.
Yes, that's true too. It takes about 45 minutes, and like I said, that's a perfect length to want to get right back into it. That is Cryptid.
I have not been doing as much gaming as I want to lately. I have been moving apartments. So most of the gaming I've done has been around parties, party games, and playing games on the 4th of July. Go America.
USA. USA.
Thank you, Mark. And if you edit this to add that South African chant, we will have to speak about that privately.
I'm editing out the South African.
That's true. Great. So one of the games we wanted to touch on, we played Werewords, we played silly party games. We played this game, I think, called Physicians, where...
Psychologists,
where a psychologist leaves the room. Everyone is a patient in a mental institution and comes up with a couple of rules that they all have to follow, like you must answer every question as if you are the player to your left, to the best of your abilities. But if you say an answer incorrectly, that person has to hit their head or like wiggle around the room or be physically uncomfortable. And then it could be as silly as, if they ask you a why question, you must say hoity-toity in your reply back to them. And then that person comes back into the room and they just start asking questions. And the whole game is just them asking questions and trying to figure out the rule while everyone else is laughing at them. This was hilarious and fun. I guess this is a parlor game or a normal drinking game perhaps for some people. But it was just hilarious trying to answer, specifically this one about trying to answer for the player to your left, especially if you didn't know the person that well. Or, I think Neelan was to the left of me. So there was a question about like...
My favorite music is apparently techno rave.
Techno rave, or like favorite foods. I like said something about South African something,
right.
And it was just like everyone knew I was going to answer that way, and so there was just like, oh no, here comes Kellen, like, and then Neelan's like has to shake around every answer because I'm answering. Really silly. It's a fun game. We enjoyed it. But one of the board games we also played that I did want to talk about was Two Rooms and a Boom. This is a very, very popular social deduction game. It's cool because it plays so many players. I think it probably starts around 5 or 6 players. But then...
Yeah, I don't know if you'd ever want to play with less than 10.
Yeah, but goes to 25, 30 even, perhaps. It's a game where 2 groups of people are in different rooms, and then every few minutes you are sending a group of players to the opposite room. So in the first round, you're sending more players. In the second and third and fourth round, you're sending less and less and less. At the end of the game, there's a red team and a blue team, and the red team wants to blow up the president, so they need their bomber in the room with the president, and the blue team is obviously trying to protect their president. So you get assigned a role at the beginning of the game, and then you're mingling with people, you're nominating leaders, similar in some ways to a game like Resistance, where you're trying to figure out who you could work with. You're able to share your full card with your teammates. You're able to share part of your card with your teammates if you want to. But then within those teams, there's also special roles that can do different things. You could be a shy guy, meaning you can't show your card to anyone, even if they ask. So that draws suspicion on you. There's so many roles, so many wacky combinations to this game. And it's quite popular at conventions. But I think that I am officially done with Two Rooms and a Boom. That's my hot take. I think the game usually or ultimately or inevitably devolves into, should we send the bomber in the last round of the game to the other room? And then on the other side, they're thinking, should we send the president or not? So the amount of rounds that are decided by teams just sending, 2 ships passing in the night, the bomber and the president walking to the other rooms, and then the game's over. It's one of those social deduction games that I enjoy playing, but then at the end, it's so incidental whether I've won or not.
Right.
It's like, oh, I didn't win this time. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And that was revealed so clearly to me. We played it with more than 20 people. It's great that it can play that many people. And I still would agree to play it at a convention, as I hear that that's a great way to just mingle and hang out with people. But man, I don't know. What do you guys think about Two Rooms and a Boom?
I've only played it twice, but both those experiences are sort of what you're talking about. I have a good enough time playing it, but the ending always sort of ends up feeling like a coin flip. So it feels a little lacking whenever I sort of walk away from the game. It just feels like, oh, that was sort of a fun experience, but how much game was there in that? So I don't think I'm necessarily done with it. But yeah, I'm never really clamoring to play it.
I think it's a game that I always enjoy the act of playing it. Like you said, I think the result is mostly incidental to the experience of playing it. I think what it does especially well is something you already said, which is if you throw a bunch of strangers together, and a huge number of them at that, it's such a great way to have a fun experience that everyone will enjoy without you necessarily having to know everyone in the room. And it's also a good way to get to know the people in the room. I think in the environment we were in, there were a bunch of people that we weren't sort of familiar with, and it was just a cool way just to sort of interact with people that we might not have otherwise. It's not necessarily the most social game, but at least you're learning people's names, perhaps, learning how they play games, just getting a brief taste of them as people. And I'm never not having a good time while I'm playing it. I always feel like I'm invested in what's happening, despite how many times I've played it and known exactly what you're describing, which is I know that it's ultimately not going to lead to a satisfying conclusion, because it never does.
But that's so weird, right? To say, like, you have fun getting to the end, but then the end doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But that sort of in your mind, at some point you got to realize, hey, wait a minute, Neelan, this doesn't matter. What I'm doing makes no difference.
It's all about the journey, Kellen.
It sort of feels like to me, like, if I found myself in a situation where there were 20 other people, then it would be a game where I was fine playing, but it's not a game where I would try to rally 20 people together to play it.
But I think the thing that was striking to me about playing it most recently is I think I came to more or less the same conclusion, that it very much dampened my enthusiasm of it. It's a game I've had for a while, and I typically try to get enough people to play.
I feel like you espoused it, you're for the past few years.
Yeah, no, totally. I've been a big fan of it because of how unique an experience it is. But I came away from those games thinking, like, I don't know, maybe there are just better things to do. It's hard because there aren't many games that play that many people. It seems like it's still filling a very specific niche, but yeah, definitely not feeling as hot on as I used to.
That is 2 Rooms and a Boom and Psychiatrist. We also played Werewords and had some good rounds and some rounds of Neelan and I arguing about whether Insider or Werewords is better. We won't rehash that discussion. I'm sure there's multiple episodes where you can listen to that. But Mark, what have you been playing, sir?
So I played a new game, Planet, from Blue Orange Games. Neil and I know played this
in 3D.
That's right. And Kellen is referring to the 3D sphere that you have, this planet-like sphere that comes to you when you start the game. It is blank. And then during the course of the game, you're going to be drafting these pentagon-shaped pieces that are magnetically going to stick to your little sphere there. There are cards that are placed on the board, and they tell you what is going to be scored at the end of every round. So at the end of one round, you may be scoring the biggest single, say, because there are 5 different types of land masses. There's like sand and grass and mountain and ice and water. I think those are the 5 types of terrain. So you're going to know what types of terrains are scoring. So, for example, at the end of the first round, it may be the largest ice terrain that is touching sand, for example. So you'll do a draft of these tiles, and the first person to draft changes every round. So in the first round, I may be the person drafting first, and then it'll go to Neelan and then Kellen and go around the table. And because you know what is going to be scoring throughout the game, you can plan to jump out and grab some things that are scoring early because you know that you see the tiles are advantageous to doing that. Or you may see that later in the game, the most separate number of, say, jungle tiles are going to score. So in that case, you are, throughout the game, you're planning to pick up jungle tiles and make sure they don't touch because you want separate jungle tiles. So it's a really simple sort of drafting game. There's not much more rules apart from what I said. And the sphere adds sort of like a novelty to it. You could do this on a board, but the way that the land masses connect up, you would sort of lose that aspect of it.
Is it a gimmick? I pointed at it.
It's not a gimmick, but it's just shy of not being a gimmick because it does make your individual board different because things can link up, but it is right on the cusp of being a gimmick.
Cop out.
So yeah, Neelan, what did you think of Planet?
My initial reaction was I didn't think it was amazing, but it's also very innocuous. Like, it takes like 30 minutes to play, something like that. It's very simple to teach. And, I've said toy factor a lot, and it's high in this. Like, just the tactility and the playfulness of sort of having this literal, like, sphere in your hands that you sort of place these magnets onto is very satisfying. It's a little bit inscrutable because of that. Like, you have to sort of, like, keep rotating it to try to figure out. It's hard to even know that if once I place this on the outside of the map, how is that going to affect all of my linkages? So the idea that you'd be effectively planning the spatial components of this 3D sphere throughout the game is almost impossible really to do especially well. Something that wouldn't be true if it was a board, but it wouldn't feel the same if it wasn't just like completely wrapped around this thing. It's just a very unique feeling that once you place your last couple of magnets, you've just created this large entire planet of all these different land masses. It does lend itself to a couple of interesting problems in that you're constantly having to ask people, okay, how many ice regions do you have?
That's what I was going to bring up.
Yeah, how many forests do you have next to water? Because it's very important at any given point in time that you know that, so you know what cards you're in contention for. And it feels like a lot of the game devolves into just finding out what you have and what everyone else has.
Right.
Let me look at your planet, bro.
Right.
You bring up a good point with the whole having to ask every round, because it makes me wonder, because this is a very light game, but because of that aspect of it, I wonder if it's a game that you would want to play as a gateway game. Like, does it lend itself to being a game? I feel like
I don't know. It didn't feel like it was quite
smooth enough.
Yeah.
Like, there is that.
What's the opposite of inscrutable?
Scrutable. Scrutable.
What if there was magnets and it floated, so it's like rotating around like a planet, and then you could see it? No, but I'm curious, because I do think that even in our big game of diplomacy, you know, the fact that where I was at in Turkey was somehow connected to the mid-Atlantic Ocean and could affect Neelan, wrapped around the board,
right?
And it's harder to see it. Yeah. And so you could build Planet in a way that it, like, they were all connected, but it would be really annoying to like, think about. And sometimes that factors into how much you enjoy a game, or basically, can you read the board state at a glance? And I think in that case, like, it was hard for everyone to even understand in diplomacy that I was about to come around and people up. Right? Because it literally wasn't, it was connected, but it's hard to realize.
Right, right.
And so Planet is trying to get around that in a fun Toy Factory way, but then it's also, the downside is some people can't see.
Right. In the end, what happens is literally at the beginning of every round, people ask, like, okay,
who's winning this card?
Yeah, we're scoring this card. Who's winning it? How many do you have? Okay, we're scoring this card. Who's winning it? How many do you have? And so, like, every round that happens. I could accept that for a medium weight game, but for a game that's as light as it is, it just seems like unnecessary waste of time.
Yeah, exactly. For a game that's that light and that short, it should feel smoother.
Yes, exactly. That was my primary issue with Planet by Blue Orange Games.
But if they added the magnets that I was talking about,
they would have solved it.
Yeah.
Because then the planets would rotate. It would be even. I mean, these are free ideas. Who's the publisher of this?
Blue Orange.
I'll email them.
Okay. Just all I need is anti-gravity.
No. You know those desk ornaments where people, you use magnets and you can make little things float?
The sphere has magnets. So if you do like a reverse magnet thing, how are you going to get the magnets on the sphere?
You make the planet out of felt. Haven't you seen Blood on the Clock Tower?
Aren't you going to have... How do you have the magnet in the sphere?
You have
a magnet in the sphere that is wrapped with felt? A felt-wrapped magnet?
Yep.
You need to think bigger, Mark.
Okay. That's a fair criticism.
That is wrapping up the games that we have played this week. As always, we like to read reviews of the podcast. You can review the Board Game Barrage podcast anywhere you want on the internet. Still waiting on that first review on Yelp. This review comes to us from J.M. Vasquez Jr. I hope I did that right. Board games are on my mind, ... kid.
Nice.
That's nice.
I like it already.
I listen to more board game podcasts than I care to mention, and this is one of my faves. They always present interesting topics and balance well-thought-out opinions with the right amount of humor. No laughing after every other word like I hear on a few other pods. Podcasts, you meant to write. Ugh. The ugh is in here. These are dudes I'd love to play Biblios, Resistance, or Innovation with while sipping some Boss tea. I don't know what that means, and if...
B-O-S-S-T?
No, B-O-S capital.
I think that's a South African drink.
Just do yourself a favor and subscribe. Oh, unless you're a hardcore Stonemaier Games fan, in which case you may find yourself cursing a certain Red Tank. Check out their Instagram account as well. Some nice images by the Red Tank himself. Oh, that's nice. That is at Board Game Barrage on Instagram. You can find us there. I do take pride in the photographs, or I try to. But thank you so much for writing the review. We always appreciate those. Another shout out to our Patreon, which you can find at patreon.com/BoardGameBarrage or on our website at BoardGameBarrage.com/Patreon. We are getting excited because we're about to record our first ever monthly bonus episode. So we are getting excited to talk a little bit more about board games, but to also just shoot the breeze together.
Between the sheets.
Is that what we're calling it? We got to come up with what we're calling it. But we're so grateful for all the people who have supported us on Patreon and for anyone who feels like that's something they want to do. It's one of the many ways that you can help the podcast, and thank you so much. Now let us move on to our featured topic, which today is the
Gen Con 2019 preview.
We are counting down the 5 games each that we are most excited to check out at
Gen Con 2019 in Indianapolis, Indiana, United States of America.
I've been pointing and then trying to rein him in. It's just so challenging. So we've picked 5 games each. We checked for crossover. There was no crossover. That means you're getting our 15 games that we are most excited to see, to play. Can you buy all the games on your list? Do you know?
I think so. I think I checked the for sale.
Oh, man, I don't know that at all.
I'm unsure about some of mine. So I did leave off some of the games that I have talked about a great deal on the podcast, like Mezzo, like Oceans, some of the Kickstarters I'm waiting for. I just wanted to give some new and exciting games. And honestly, I wanted to hype myself up. I go through this list at work when I should be working, and I'm just reading, looking at photographs. This is a fun time. You guys having fun?
I have never gone through the Gen Con upcoming lists, and I would not have gone through it if not for this. I don't know why. I guess I'm already pretty hyped about Gen Con in general, so I just want to dive in and just find things out. But I get what you do. That's cool. I know you like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I like ending up with like a short list of stuff that I just want to like beeline to at the convention, so I find it super useful for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I also kind of like being surprised on the show floor a little bit. So yeah,
I think it leads to situations like when I got excited about Crazy Words. I ran over there to buy it and no one else bought it. And there was a stack of 1,000.
Yeah.
Like, oh, where are you going? And I'm like, oh, I'm not telling you. I'm going for Crazy Words, dude. So let's do it. Let us start with our number 5 most excited game for
Gen Con 2019 in Indianapolis, Indiana.
What?
East of the Mississippi, or maybe west of the Mississippi. Known for its agriculture and gazelles. I don't know.
All right, so let us go this order.
Sure.
Mark, what is your number 5?
My number 5 game is from Frosted Games. This is Watergate. I shy away from 2-player only games, but the historical nature of this, I'm a sucker for games that are steeped in history, was too much for me to ignore. So this is about the Watergate investigation. I think one side is playing like Nixon and his cabinet or something versus the investigators. One team is trying to kick him out, and Nixon's side is trying to stay in power, I guess, is what the idea is. So yeah, just that part of it is interesting to me. It feels like along the lines of Twilight Struggle or 1989 or 1960, all these games that are historically based. I just love that what if part of history. So just something I'm looking forward to. So that is Watergate.
Do you like Twilight Struggle?
I do like Twilight Struggle. Yeah.
And it's not the same designer or anything like that.
No, it's not the same designer as Twilight Struggle, but interestingly, this is a Matthias Kramer game. So Kramer is known for Lancaster and Glenmore and Kraftwagen. So a bunch of games that I already like. So this is a good sign in and of itself. A German's take on the Watergate scandal. What will they think of next?
I feel really self-conscious about laughing right now after that review.
Why?
Because it said that we don't laugh too much. But what is too much? Like my goal, who's to say? Because when we turn on the podcast recording, I just try to make you laugh, Mark.
That's true.
It's gotten harder and harder over the years.
Oh, you're getting less and less funny.
It's just you need to stop anticipating.
That laugh counted as a laugh at my own joke, by the way, for those scoring at home.
Cool. Nealon?
My number 5 game is a roll and write game. This wasn't on my list. It was just below the bottom, but I didn't think it would be appropriate not to include it, if not because it clearly aggravates Kellen. So I picked the one that would aggravate him the most.
Perfect.
This is Welcome to Dino World, because this is a long, medium weight roll and write game, which is...
What will they think of next?
What will they think of next? The reason this appeals to me is a couple of things. I mean, the theme is fun. Jurassic Park is still a good movie, it turns out. David Turchi is involved in the design of this, who is a designer I've just grown to appreciate a lot recently. Like, he's on Anachrony, Dracarian, Kitchen Rush, which is a really good real-time cooperative game. He's a designer that's sort of just rising in my estimation the more games of his I play. And the aim for Welcome to Dino World is to be sort of a longer, more elaborate, more Euro-type experience where you're building a dinosaur park, but with the roll and ride trappings, and that you're rolling dice and sort of marking pens and dinosaurs and buildings on your park. So it feels like you're building something. And I like that when you sort of look at your sheet at the end of the game, you're like, look at my park versus yours. This is one that just the concept alone is enough to be interesting. Like I've said before, Welcome to has sort of traditionally been my favorite in this genre, particularly because it feels a little bit more weighty, a little bit like the decisions are more interesting than your average roll and write game. So yeah, I'm looking forward to Welcome to Dino World.
There's a joke somewhere here about how it's like Welcome to, except they've already given you the name of your town.
Right, exactly. Everyone's town is Dino World. So that is Welcome to Dino World by Alley Cat Games.
Meow. My number 5 game that I am looking forward to is called Conflicting Legends from Indie Boards and Cards. Conflicting Legends is a group game. I think it goes up to 8 players, where it's sort of a rock, paper, scissors tournament with special powers, with a civilization theme. This is just so great. You're basically like fighting each other, playing rock, paper, scissors over and over again. It feels a little like in the realm of rock, paper, wizard, but I'm a sucker for the civilization theme where you're literally like different characters throughout history who now somehow have special powers that help you in rock, paper, scissors. What I've read about it is that there's very much a gang up on the leader type feel to it, where you're just trying to not get anyone to get to 10 points to win the game. I really like indie boards and cards. I'm always looking at what they have coming out because they're small, simple, interactive games. This is based on a previous edition of this that was published by another publisher, and they picked it up. So my hope is that was decently well received, that they've refined it, they've upgraded it a little bit. I'm excited to play this. This is Conflicting Legends.
My number 4 is from Renegade Games. This is Time Chase. This is a trick-taking game with a time travel element. So from what I understand, you play tricks and you're trying to win them, but then you can also use some sort of like time traveling thing to go back and like win tricks that have happened in the past. So I like trick-taking games in general, and there's a million different iterations on the trick-taking game, but this idea of like jumping back to previous tricks and manipulating them, just sort of interesting. I think it's a clever way to integrate the time travel idea with a trick-taking game. So my number 4 is Time Chase by Renegade Games.
My number 4 is also by Renegade Games, actually. It's by Renegade and Direwolf. They had collaborated on Clank previously. Direwolf had at some point produced an online CCG called Eternal. I don't know too much about it, except that it's a Magic the Gathering style of dueling card game, I believe, but with a more traditional constructed format. What I like about this new game, which is called Eternal Chronicles of the Throne, is that it sort of takes the same style of gameplay but makes it into a deck builder game. This is something I've said repeatedly is a version of the constructed CCG card game that I'm especially interested in. When you just break out the box, everyone is building their decks as they play, but it plays like a traditional 2-player dueling game. There's a shared deck of cards that you're getting your units from. You play them. I don't know too much about the mechanics, but I just like so much about this idea that I could, like I said, just break out a box, say, here are the rules, let's play this, and still capture the feel of a Magic the Gathering type game. There is Eternal Chronicles of the Throne. This one kind of sort of sprung out of nowhere. I hadn't heard of it before looking at the Gen Con preview list, and I'm super excited to check it out. That is by Renegade and Direwolf.
Does that go to more than 2 players?
It's 2 to 4 technically, but my impression is probably that it's intended as a dueler.
What?
Yeah. I actually don't know that for a fact, to be honest, but I got the impression that it was mostly intended as a dueler.
My number 4 game that I am looking forward to at Gen Con 2019 is by IDW Games. This is Tonari. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. Tonari is coming to us from Bruno Fedudi and Alex Randolph. Bruno Fedudi, who made, Mission Red Planet, Citadels, and perhaps my favorite, Diamant, which is one of my favorite Push Your Luck games. That's Diamant /
Ink and Gold.
Ink and Gold. Thank you. So this game, Tonari, has a beautiful cover illustrated by Kwanchai Morier. It is a sort of abstract strategy game where you are all fishermen on a boat trying to collect fish. Honestly, if it wasn't for the central conceit of the game, I would not be interested in this at all, because my understanding is it's a 4-player, 30-minute abstract game of collecting sets of fish where you're just moving this boat around. But, the twist. At the end of the game, the player with the most points wins, but everyone's score is added to their player to their left score as well. So your final score in the game is your score plus the score of the player to your left.
Okay, interesting.
So it's this game of you're trying to set up players to score points as well as getting you to score points. And playing around with scoring systems like this is something I'm always excited about. If this is a shorter time frame game, something about this just speaks to me in terms of, hey, we're going to mix things up. We're going to do it a little bit differently. And this just feels like that classic twist that could make a good game super great. That is Tonari.
My number 3 game comes from Cranio Creations. This is the game that is messing up our SEO. Barrage. Designed by Simeone Luciani, one of the designers of Zolkin and Voyages of Marco Polo and Grand Austria Hotel. So he's got a nice resume there. Barrage intrigues me for a couple reasons. It's a medium to heavy, I think, strategy game, but it's got a wheel a la Zolkin. I guess it's called a construction wheel where there's somehow a timing aspect to it, which I find sort of interesting. And there's also the shared resource. Water is a shared resource in the game, and the players are manipulating control over it. And I just like the idea of a shared resource that you're all sort of trying to vie for and manipulate to your own benefit. So the timing aspect of the wheel and the shared resource are why I'm looking forward to Barrage by Cranio Creations. Also, the name is great.
It's also a good-looking game. Like the
Yes.
board is very
Yeah.
cool. It
Yeah.
almost looks like brass.
Brassy
with that
style thing. Yeah.
That has nothing to do with tanks.
Right. That's where they messed up. That's where they fucked up.
It's about dams.
Yeah. That's weird. Like,
Not
yeah.
even about wartime.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point.
I've heard that Barrage is a type of. I don't know. I mean,
It is a type
I've
of
never
dam.
heard the
is?
association,
Yeah.
but I guess it's a type of dam.
Oh, should we be 3 dams then? Did we mess up?
No. Don't say that, Mark.
I got dibs on Hoover. It's a damn joke.
No. Nealon,
Save us.
save us.
Okay, my number 3 game is In the Hall of the Mountain King. This was another game that I hadn't heard of until I had seen it on the Gen Con preview list, and the more I read about it, the more excited I was to go check this out. The premise of this is that you are trolls sort of digging through this mountain for sort of treasures. There are a couple of sort of elements here. One is where you have what they describe as a cascading resource system. So you have cards which determine what resources you're collecting. And at the beginning of the game, when you collect resources, you'll just get the resources that are on the first card you get. As you add more cards, you're sort of forming a pyramid, and each resource sort of triggers resources below it, I believe, of the same type. I'm not sure exactly. So you're sort of, as you progress through the game, you're just getting more and more resources in this very interesting cascading fashion. And you use the resources to dig tunnels using polyminos to sort of move your way across this board. You know how much I love polyminos, so that was appealing too. So you're sort of digging through these tunnels, moving your trolls through them to get statues, which you then carry through the tunnels to try to get them deeper into the mountains. So it's a combination of just really interesting mechanics in a very cool looking game with a kind of a unique theme. It seemed really, really neat to me. It seems like it's got sort of very crunchy, interesting decisions, but just mixed with the spatial element where you're sort of trying to cut people off with your tunnels or get to resources before they do. And that combination of elements was just really, really appealing. That is In the Hall of the Mountain King by Burnt Island Games.
There's something cool about looking at this board where everyone's starting at a different part of the dig dug, map and then
slowly,
digging towards the center.
Yeah.
That intrigued me, even though it's another Tetris clone.
Yep.
Clearly. My number 3 game that I am most excited about to check out at Gen Con is a 2-player abstract strategy game by Smirk and Dagger, or as they go by now, Smirk and Laughter. I think they changed the name of their company too. This is SHŌBU, SHOBU. This game is beautiful. There are 4 boards in a game of SHŌBU, and there are black and white stones a la Go on the board. I don't really know how the pieces are removed from the board, but the conceit of the game is that if you remove all 4 of your opponent's stones from any of the 4 boards, you win the game. It's very simple and straightforward, but what I just love taking a classic idea and then twisting it a little bit. And so this just feels like my level of abstract strategy. I enjoy playing these games specifically with my younger brother. This is one that I saw, looked amazing, beautiful on the table, one that I just want to pick up and try to play with him and kind of discover. That is SHŌBU by Smirk and Dagger / Laughter.
It's got an almost handmade look to it that I thought was beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that black and white stones from Go, on a really simple board look. I think it even it comes with rope that kind of separates the two.
Oh, really?
The 4 little boards. It's silly, but cute. Not cute. Pretty.
My number 2 game comes from Capstone Games, who honestly, I think they had my number like 6 and 7 games as well. So I'm really excited by the new stuff coming up from Capstone. But this one is Pipeline, a game that is already getting a lot of buzz, but I'm super excited to try it out. All the buzz seems to be positive. It's a heavy economic strategy game with a spatial element where you're obviously building a pipeline. And yeah, just all the buzz I've heard has been great. Capstone has a super high success rate in my eyes, so anything by them generally turns out to be pretty fantastic. So my number 2 game is Pipeline by Capstone Games.
This was really close to being on my list as well. Yeah, I love just like the pipe dream tile laying element mixed with an economic game. It looks really cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Was Ragusa?
Ragusa was my number 6.
I'm surprised. Yeah.
Well, that's some trading. I says like commodity speculation.
Right.
Like, oh, Mark's got this on his list.
I did. I definitely did.
My number 2 game is Sanctum by CGE. This is a game that tries to emulate the hack and slash genre of video games, very specifically Diablo. I think they're being pretty blatant about it. The cover art would suggest pretty much a character that looks exactly like Diablo from the Blizzard game. But what intrigued me about this is designed by Philippe Neduc, who had previously done Adrenaline, which is another attempt to capture a video game in board game form, which I thought was incredibly successful. In fact, like, you could argue that CGE have been doing this for a while. A lot of Lada's games have a very video game feeling to them. And honestly, for my money, they've always done a really, really good job of making that translation. So the idea of a game that sort of tries to capture that loot RPG feel is super exciting to me. So the way this works is I believe it's a press your luck dice game where the loot you're collecting is either sort of helping or mitigating the rolls you make. So it's about sort of acquiring better and better loot so that you can better get more loot as these games work. You're just using the loot you have to get more, flip it, get better, and keep doing it and more successfully than other people in order to defeat monsters. That is Sanctum. There's not a whole lot known about this just yet, but I'm super excited to check it out at CGE's booth.
My number 2 game that I'm most excited about is the only expansion on anyone's list.
Yes, I kept expansions off specifically.
No.
Because that didn't seem right to me.
Because you're a tryhard. This is the first expansion for Inish, Seasons of Inish. Inish is a fantastic area control game, dudes on a map game where you're drafting a small deck of 16 cards. And Seasons of Inish is an expansion that adds a couple of things that I'm really excited about. One, a 5th player. Getting that to 5 players, I think, is ideal. Right around that player count, you get to 6 players and suddenly you're like, why are we doing this? But 5 is a good number for a game like this. And it also adds new epic cards. So I love the crazy deck of powers that are not part of that little deck of precise actions that change the game in unique ways. And then it also adds alternate end game conditions that push you towards the end of the game quicker. Mr. Nealon, he's looking at me with eyes. Mr. Nealon has oft complained about the end game of Inish, where there's a lot of king making, a lot of jumping on top of each other, and a game that could be 45 minutes could also be 3 hours.
Yeah, because
I've also complained about this, for the record.
Right, because it doesn't feel like you're playing it properly unless you're constantly stopping the leader from winning. That's kind of what the game is.
And so this attempts to alleviate that concern. I'm not exactly sure how it does it, but I'm very excited for Inish, Seasons of Inish. I don't know, is it Seasons of Inish, or is there the colon and it's got the name in it? This is getting...
I think that's just the way BGG does it, isn't it?
Who could say? This is by Matigo Games. I'm very excited to check out the expansion to Inish.
My number 1 game was my number 1 most anticipated game of 2019. This is from Parallel Games. This is City of the Big Shoulders. It's supposed to be a 18xx game without trains, quicker, taking place in Chicago during the Industrial Revolution. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
You should listen to our anticipated games of 2019 for a more concise review of it.
Oh, I don't go back. I was like,
yeah, so I've already talked about this game plenty, but it's one I'm super, super, super excited to play, and the fact that I'm a little over 3 weeks, or a little under 3 weeks, I'm about 3 weeks away from getting my hands on it, super excited. So, City of the Big Shoulders by Parallel Games.
You're number 1, bro.
Number 1. It's been my number 1 twice. What beats that?
We're not even being sponsored by them.
I know. There you go. It's a shame.
My number 1 game sort of surprised me because it was a game I was sort of aware of, and the more I dug into it in like preparation for this app, I just came away thinking like, that sounds really dumb and cool, and I'm excited for it. It is MegaCity Oceania. It is a dexterity / strategic area control game. One quick setup for this is that one of the designers is Jordan Draper, who does the Tokyo games. And I think this, at first glance, seemed the most similar to Tokyo Jakarta, which is a game that Kellen and I had played and didn't love, where you're sort of assembling buildings from small pieces. So this has a little bit of that premise, where part of what you're doing on your turn is you have a tile that you've collected previously, you have a contract that says, okay, the building on this tile must be this high, must use this amount of these construction materials, which would be different pieces of a specific type of plastic. And then you're having to assemble a building, by balancing pieces on top of each other until it matches those configurations. What's interesting about this is that you can only do this when it's not your turn. So while Mark is playing his turn, I'm sort of frantically trying to build my building because I might want to send it out on my next turn. Then it gets back to me and I deliver it. So I have to then now deliver this slowly to the city, hoping it doesn't collapse while I'm delivering it. And then the positioning of where you're placing the city is very important because at the end of the game, the number of buildings you have in specific areas or adjacent to other structures is how you're going to be scoring points.
Okay.
So I love that idea of just like a dexterity game kind of,
right,
but mixed with a game that, has a fair bit of strategy going on in it. And the novel idea that you're sort of rushing to build while it's not your turn just struck me as such a clever idea and just goofy in just the right amount of ways that I just thought, this seems rad, and I actually can't wait to play it.
Yeah, that sounds funny.
One of the best things about it is if you see like a finished board of this, it's actually really beautiful looking. It's got this sort of like junk art, but without the bright colors sort of aesthetic where these like polyhedral buildings where it does actually look like this future city made out of sort of black, white, and sort of transparent pieces. It's a cool looking game, and I really want to check this out. That's MegaCity Oceania by Hub Games.
My number one game that I'm most excited to check out at Gen Con 2019 is probably no surprise to anyone who listens to the podcast. This is Black Angel by Pearl Games. This is from the designers of Twa. It's set in space, and this board is saturated to
That's the reason it's saturated?
It's beautiful. I love the artwork. I love the purple and pink colors that they have on the board. I'm excited for another game. I believe it's a trio of designers who've come back together and made another game. This is Black Angel. It's releasing at Gen Con. I imagine it will be one of the talked about games along with things like Sanctum and City of Big Shoulders. So I think these are all, is that how you say it? City of Big Shoulders?
City of the Big Shoulders.
City of the Big Shoulders. I'm surprised this didn't make it lower on any of your lists, but I wonder if
this was like my number 7.
You knew that I would co-opt it.
It was a little
probably.
bit of that. I knew it would be higher on your list, so it would have been like maybe 5 or 6 on mine at best.
Yeah, at best.
Sorry.
That's going to do it for this episode of the Board Game Barrage podcast.
Our Gen Con 2019 preview from Indianapolis, Indiana, home of the Indianapolis Colts in the National Football League.
That's pretty good. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Patreon. You can email us at boardgamebarrage@gmail.com. Our website is boardgamebarrage.com. Please reach out to us if you are at Gen Con, you want to show us a game. If you want to hang out at Gen Con, please reach out to us. Another great way to get in touch with us is on our Discord channel, which is boardgamebarrage.com/Discord. We have a very vibrant community full of some of our friendlies, and we sit and talk about games all day long. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode, and as always, thank you to Heart Society Music for their song, What's on Your Mind, Kid, from their album, Wake the Queens.
See you later.
Thank you, and good night.
Bye-bye.
We ready?
Yep, sir.
76.
Go ahead. Do it.
Oh, and I can go now?
Yeah.
Or you've given me permission.
Now you have permission.
And
Go.
Oh, wait.
oh.
Okay.
Hello and welcome to episode number 76. So let's do it. Let's talk from start to let us start with our number 5 most excited game for Neelan. Stop singing. Tell us about Planet.
No.
Stop singing and tell us about Cryptid.
Happily.
Shosholoza kulezo ntaka stimela siphume South Africa. Shosholoza kulezo ntaba sitimela siphume South Africa wena uyabaleka kulezo ntaba sitimela siphume South Africa wena uyabaleka kulezo ntaba sitimela siphume South Africa sholoza kulezo ntaba sitimela siphume South Africa sholoza kulezo ntaba sitimela siphume South Africa wena uyabaleka kulezo ntaba sitimela siphume South Africa wena uyabaleka kulezo ntaba sitimela siphume South Africa sholoza kulezo ntaba